Hello and welcome to the Shoot Off. I'm your host, Bernardo Oliveira, Brazilian Olympic archer, and this is your Archery podcast. Here we have one-on-one, in-depth conversations with some of the biggest names in our sport. Paris 2024 is in the books. In total, the archery competition ran across 9 days during the first half of the games. 7 different countries made it to the podium, but only one won gold medals. And that is all 5 of them. Of course, we're talking about Korea. But believe me, their life wasn't easy. There were tight matches, shoot-offs, and moments where their dominance hung in the balance. I'm not exaggerating. On one occasion they won, literally, by only a few millimeters. If you don't know yet what I'm talking about, then listen until the end. In this episode, I talked to John Stanley, a brilliant journalist and writer whom I've known for about a decade now. Not only he provides his insightful analysis about all things archery in Paris, he also brings some behind-the-scenes stories that give more depth to what happened at the iconic Esplanade des Invalides. Whether you managed to follow all the action or whether you could only quickly check the results, we've got you covered. Join us as we relive and discuss the highlights of the archery competition during the 33rd Olympiad. John Stanley, welcome to the Shoot Off Archery podcast. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Once again, welcome to the show. How have you been doing? Alive and well after all the emotions in Paris?
I am indeed, Bernardo. Thank you so much, and good to talk to you again as well. It's been a little while, so yeah, I'm alive and well. I was in Paris for just a little over 2 weeks. It was hard work and it was tricky in places, but no, I had an amazing time really, and got to be very much part of the experience of Olympic archery in Paris. So I count myself very lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Just following it from a distance was already amazing, and I imagine being on site was, out of this world. But if you don't mind, then just to begin things here, would you introduce yourself, shortly for who doesn't know you, for the listeners who are not acquainted with you yet?
Yes, sure. My name is John Stanley. I've been sort of following archery for about 12 years or so now. And I became best known because I started a blog called The Infinite Curve, which is still just about going. It's got a little quieter in recent years, but it's still there, and I'm going to add something to it quite shortly. And I've been working for all kinds of people in archery ever since, really, and including world archery. So I'm a journalist, but ultimately I'm a fan, really. I'm a fan who, luckily enough, managed to turn the kind of fandom and hobby into something else. So just through writing about it, again, I count myself as very lucky, really.
Cool. I get that feeling whenever we talk, whenever I read the blog or anything that you're involved in. I get this feeling that there is this very professional aspect to it of somebody who really knows what he is doing, writing and everything, but also someone who's really passionate. So it's really cool to hear you say this yourself, because this is exactly the vibe I get whenever I just talk to you or anything. Then to start things off, what was the atmosphere like at Les Invalides, the venue, that huge venue with, I guess, record-breaking seating capacity? What was it like being there?
What was it like being there? Just you certainly, once competition had started, you felt this kind of, people were really excited to be there as well. I was trying to think about the crowd. Is it a mixture of people who are archery fans? And then there's presumably some people who just want a day out and thinking okay, sure, I'll go and watch archery. That seems I can understand that, So there's a little bit of that. But it seemed people were really, the thing I was maybe surprised about is I've seen a few big crowds and I've now been to 3 Olympic Games, but it's mostly been a little polite. It's been quite polite applause. And it was more like a football crowd. It had that kind of energy about it. And people were kind of, screaming and, sort of shouting things out. So it had had a very different atmosphere from any archery event I've been to. I mean, that's just when competition started. I was there like 5 days before and like nothing at all happened. You're just in this thing which is still being built and is not quite ready. And that's just kind of strange and nothing quite works. And then suddenly it's like we're in competition and the show must go on. The way the show was put on was absolutely brilliant. And I really hope everyone who came got their money's worth and had a great time, because it was certainly the most exciting archery competition I've ever seen. So, yeah.
And why do you think that this time it just felt different? It just felt like that the excitement was turned up to the next level. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it has to do with the French public. I mean, 10 years ago, I went to the Archery World Cup final, which was held in Paris, which was not far away. It was actually held like almost underneath the Eiffel Tower. It was very even more sort of picturesque kind of venue. That was pretty big too. Like that sold, I'm not sure how many tickets. Sure, I can find out, but maybe at least like 1,500 or 2,000 tickets. There was clear that there was an appetite for archery in France, or in Paris anyway, that was kind of there. There was also a pent-up demand because, of course, no one could go to the last Olympics. So people who are fans,
yeah.
there are fans who travel from all over the world to come and do this and see it. And of course, no one could go to the last one. So I think there was a sort of pent-up excitement about that, which all kind of fed into the same thing. So yeah, it was good. And there were some exciting things happened. There were some great exciting matches. So.
Yeah, and picking up on that, just purely looking at the results, let's say someone who doesn't really pay attention to how the competition unfolded, but just looks purely at the medals table, they might just look at it and think, oh, come on, this was really dull. This was really boring. Like Korea just won all the gold medals. And not only that, they also won individual silver in the women's and another individual bronze in the men. So they might think that this wasn't really exciting, but for sure, for us who followed that, we know that it's far from that. It was mind-blowing. And how did you see these storylines, especially concerning Korea, unfolding? Like already first up was the emblematic thing about the women's teams on their 10th consecutive gold, but also everything that unfolded, all things Korea. How did you feel the team and also the Korean fans? What was this atmosphere like there?
Well, there were an enormous number of Korean fans in the crowd for the big matches and stuff like that. Not so much on the eliminations days, but all the medals days had. I'm not sure how many. It's difficult to put a number on it, but a huge number of Korean fans turning up. But they do that every Olympics. I mean, the first one I went to was in London in 2012, and it was kind of the same. I'd say like a third of the tickets seemed to be supporting Korea or waving Korean flags. So there's a big audience for that. The Korean story is very interesting, and how it sort of panned out. I mean, I am absolutely sure there was an enormous amount of fear with the women's team, particularly as the women's team came first. It was the first thing they had to do. And then this legacy of, the night they'd done 9 and they wanted to do 10.
It's almost like they had no icebreaker, right? Like first up was but the biggest thing.
Yeah, the biggest thing of all. And it was clear that it was the biggest thing. It was the most important thing. It's like the women's team medal is like the flagship of the fleet, the crown jewels of the Korean effort in the games, So it's this bit of magic that had to be preserved. And yet for me, I thought that was the medal that came closest of all not to happening. It really did. Mm-hmm. Apart from Kim Woo-jin at the end, but we can talk about him in a minute. But it was the women's team was, they opened with 2 ends of like 52 in their first match. And I was just like, this isn't great. Chinese Taipei just didn't quite manage to take it to them. But I did think if they get through this for their first match on the stage with Chinese Taipei, because of course they get a bye straight into the quarterfinals. So if they get through that, they're probably going to win, and so it proved. But they had 2 shoot-offs, which is it never happened before in a team event, as far as I remember. Mm-hmm. They walked out on stage, particularly the first match. They just looked absolutely terrified. I mean, you can watch it again, particularly in the opener, which was Jeon Hung-young. If you look at her face when she just draws the first arrow, she's just like this kind of like grimace. It's like, you could see how much this was, however good they are, however much they've practiced. having millions of arrows they've shot, it was still this real situation. You could just see it in their face.
Yeah, and you're talking about John Hunyong. Her qualification round already was kind of a first alert, wasn't it? Because she shot a 6 and she ranked 13th. Already, from the very start, it was already looking not so great, especially from her side.
Yes. Yes, we should go back a little there after the ranking round. So my position of privilege is not great. I know some of the people in the Korean system, and I speak to a couple of them, but I don't know the real details, and they're very careful to not really tell people that. But I did get to at least see these people right up close, as in right in the press rail, what they call the mixed zone, so at the back of the ranking round. It was very noticeable. I could see the two Korean teams, and the men just came out. They were joking with the journalists. They were like sort of dancing around. You could tell they were just having fun, and they're fine. And the women came out and they're sort of standing stiffly like this. And the coach, I was asking questions through a translator. There's 6 other Korean journalists asking questions. And the coach is just like motioning this kind of, this thing to say, cut them, get them out. I want them out of the building, So there was clearly there was going to be an inquest into what happened. It was not quite special. But then on top of that, like Lim Chun shot this ranking round, which was just like a monumental world record as well. And
yeah.
At the halfway mark before the wind picked up, it was like the best that anyone's ever shot. It was like above the man. I can't remember what the half was, but
353, 7 nines in 36 arrows. It's like.
just kind of mind-blowing, but still the fear was there. There was not confident performance, and that sort of carried on kind of throughout the day of the women's team. And then they ran up against China in the final. That went to a shoot-off as well. As I've said, well, the opener, so John Hyun-young, she didn't find the 10 ring until the last end of the first match against Chinese Taipei, and indeed was just not very crisp for the match after that as well. And then just in the final match against China, she opened with a 10. I think I got the loudest roar of any match of anything I've ever heard. All the Korean fans were just bam like this. Mm-hmm. And she was great from then on, the final match. Just as China's opener is called Lee Jiaman, I think, and she suddenly kind of fell apart. She just was not... Mm-hmm. She was clearly just not on it and not crisp. And if those positions had been reversed, then, I really think China might have won. These things were in the balance. As it seems so often with Korea, these things are balanced very, very finely. Mm-hmm. But somehow they make it through.
Yeah. Lee Jiaman, the feeling I had from her, and honestly, all throughout the competition, even individual and everything, the feeling I had from her was that she was trying too hard. She was trying to, forcefully put it there in the middle, and we know it doesn't work like that. But how did it feel, that shoot-off against the Netherlands? Like, I'm sure that caught everyone by surprise. The Netherlands being the 12th seed. 2 of them really struggled in the qualification round, Quinty Roffen and Laura van der Winkel. And then all of a sudden, they shoot against Korea, and then it goes to shoot-off. And everyone was thinking like, man, maybe the streak is going to be over even before the final.
It would have been pretty extraordinary to beat Chinese Taipei and then lose to the 12th ranked team. But again, it came very, very close. Mm-hmm. It came close to happening. So, I mean, the Netherlands went 4-2 up, if I recall correctly. So they were up, and then forced this shoot off just by, again, then Korea shot something huge in the third or fourth, 59, and then the Netherlands just edged them out on the line. It was this kind of, the situation was kind of, how is this happening? But it did. This is the odd thing. It's like the headline was always Korean women win the 10th title, but of all of the Korean performances of the whole week, that was strangely off. I mean, you saw it. You can see at the end, if you look at them on the podium, or if you look at the photos of them when they've won, they've got this look of like slightly shattered or almost destroyed. They don't look. There's a sense of just relief, but also like horror. Again, this is through kind of body language, but it's not hard to discern. It's not some little thing I'm picking up on. It's wow. I cannot imagine they thought that this would be what it was, but they did it. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's what matters. But man, I can't even fathom what it must be like to be in a position where it's binary. You win gold, you've done what was expected of you. It's not really like you are the most amazing thing. It's just simply like, you're expected to win gold. If you win it, okay, good job. That's exactly what we expected of you. If you don't, then it's total failure. This must be crazy. Like the weight on those girls' shoulders, that's unbelievable.
The weight on their shoulders, the fact that most of them, two of them had very little international experience at all. It's an awful lot to put on people, no matter how talented they are, no matter how many times the system has worked before. It's still a great deal of weight on people's shoulders, and that was the same for other athletes too. But I have absolutely no idea. I mean, I've never been under that kind of pressure, so I can't really say, even the vaguest idea of exactly what they're feeling, but it's so difficult, and yet somehow they did it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I keep saying that.
Yeah.
How did they do it? But they did, yes.
But it's interesting you say that, because this was another thing I wanted to talk to you about, because this is a feeling I had time and time again as the competition progressed, was that like there were lots of question marks hanging over the Koreans in general. Not only the women's teams, but for example, the fact that Kim Woo-jin has never performed really well individually at the games.
Yes.
But the feeling I had with the Koreans this time was that a couple of times they did feel the pressure and their performance ended up dipping a little bit. But then when it came to when it really matters, like, the all decisive shoot-off, do or die, make or break, they just seemed to have an edge over everyone else. Because this is exactly what happened on both shoot-offs of the women's teams, the mixed team, Kim Woo-jin. It's just, the feeling I had, it's really hard to put it in words, but the feeling I had is like, when it came down to the wire, when it was really the pinnacle of the tension of everything, they delivered. And other people couldn't deliver as well.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I think with shoot-offs, there's definitely more certainty as well. There's a clear certainty that they will have an advantage, and if you think you will, then maybe you will. So if you have the fear, then you won't. We all know there's usually, it's considered an advantage to going first as well, but I don't see that as a particular sort of issue. It's as I was talking to, part of my role there was to work with a journalist from something called the Olympic Information Service, who doesn't know anything about archery. So I was like filling them in with all the facts and details. I remember telling them the problem is the Koreans can turn up and give an average performance, and they'll still probably do it. Everyone else has to give the best performance of their life. And giving the best performance of your life, as you know, it's like on that stage with all the adrenaline going through you, with all that sort of, emotional energy sort of churning through your body, is very, very difficult. But somehow they do it. Nevertheless, like there's things. I mean, Kim Woo-jin said, I think twice, that it was the most nerve-wracking Olympics he's ever been to. Yeah, it was the hardest and toughest that he's ever done. So, but there was pressure on him as well, because there were expectations on him, and of course, if he achieved these things, then he would become something, more rarefied, Even if he never seems like it's very important, it's it will be.
He's human. He's got blood running through his veins, after all.
He's definitely got blood. Yeah, he's increasingly. I'm finding him all the Koreans have a good sense of humor. I think it doesn't always seem like it, but they do. If you watch the film 10, of course, Lim Seon, who definitely has a sense of humor in that. I saw little flashes of it when I was there as well. Sort of, it was really good. So they do, they have this, however calm and sort of controlled they might seem. They are real people. There's blood pumping through their veins.
Yeah,
they get the fear and they laugh as much as everyone else.
It's funny now that you mentioned Kim Woo-jin. Back in Rio 16, a couple of months before the games, he said, at the Olympics, I'm going to shoot 700. I'm going to break the world record. Everyone was like,
yes.
Well, that's quite a statement to make. He went and he delivered. And then after the round of 16 match against Almeida on Sunday, the last day of the games, he shot 29, 30, 30, 30, like blistering performance. And there was a quote from him like, oh, that 9, yeah, well, it happens to the best of us. Yeah,
that's right.
And then after winning gold, he says like, yeah, now I guess everyone can call me the greatest of all time because I've won this. And so it's really funny how he can really have these moments where he says almost what's like politically incorrect, He really dares. He can be really bold, and it's really funny.
He is, yes. I was there with the goat, the greatest of all time. Apparently, the Koreans, I cannot remember. I'm sorry, the Korean word for goat, but it's used exactly the same way as it is in English as goat, as in greatest of all time. So he said it right there. He said it in this just way that was just like, yeah, I suppose you can now. Yeah, you can call me the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
It was. I think he'd finally relaxed a little bit as well. He's like, okay. So a very funny guy, I think. Really genuinely funny guy. So, yeah, that was good.
And what is definitely new about the Korean performance, because it's not the first time that they win all gold medals. They did so in Rio. Of course, it was 4 because there was no mixed team yet. So it is the first time that they do sweep all gold medals, now that it's 5 with the addition of the mixed team.
Yes.
But having 2 women individually in the podium is not a new thing. In fact, I was researching and I believe that there were 2 editions of the games when the whole podium was Korean women.
That sounds right.
Yeah, but what I'm pretty sure it's the first time ever is them having 2 men on the individual podium.
That could be right. Yeah.
Yes, and this is the new thing, and quite surprising actually, because I think the men's side, especially the individual men's side, is the most competitive one. Like we had in Tokyo, no Koreans on the podium, but this time, once again, I feel like we're repeating ourselves. But we came to the games with the expectation that the whole world is going to put up a fight, and then it seems that they just seem to dig a little bit deeper, find a little bit extra, and then they put 2 men on the individual podium, and Liu Sok winning that bronze medal, that was also remarkable, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, he beat is it Florian?
Florian 6-0.
Yes, it was pretty rough on Florian. Florian looked I think he looked a little tired by the end. It looked like the day had drained him a little bit. So even though he's a obviously experienced competitor and fantastic archer, but I sensed that was almost one match too many for him. He did not look like someone who was very much up for the fight. But I can't really speak for Florian, of course. Florian, if you're listening, please don't. I'm sorry.
Episode 4 of the podcast was with his wife, Lisa Unruh. That was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the way it seemed to me, and that is me looking at things as an outsider. So obviously I can't speak for Florian, but you're right. It was quite a remarkable set of, and putting all 4 of the, no, not quite. When did Kim Jae-juk get knocked out? It was
quarterfinal.
Brady.
Yeah, quarterfinal against
That
Brady.
was in the quarterfinals. Yeah, that's correct. So they didn't quite get all 4 in as they did with the women. They put all 3 of them into the last 4. Nevertheless, I always felt the men's team was very, very dominant as well. And by the time Woodring got around to his second match, you were like, okay, this isn't going to be this. He's not in the sort of mood to sort of fall over on this one. He's not going to be knocked out by someone ranked, 20 places below him. It's sort of, this is going all the way. You could sort of feel it, and you could see it in the scores as well, what he was putting in. So it was a pretty remarkable performance by Korea all around as well.
Yeah.
It's just so many times, occasionally, just as I've said with the women's team, occasionally just a few little arrows, just that little bit crisper, just putting in that third end, as well as you did the first 2, it could have been very different. It's very hard for anyone else to maintain that kind of consistency and that kind of high level over several matches as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now that we talked about, of course, the most successful team, the most successful nation, wanted to talk about the upsets or the teams, the archers that perhaps under-delivered a little bit. I've set aside a couple of examples, and I'd like to know, let's say, which ones stand out to you, which ones you think really were the ones that under-delivered. So we have Taipei with no medal, and they won medals in 20 and 16 and all.
They did, yes.
Yeah. India failing to win their first medal at the Olympics, and they came so close with the mixed team.
So close, yes.
Yeah, Alejandra Valencia coming once again really close to winning an individual medal. Now in Paris, she was 6th. In Tokyo, she was 5th, and in Rio, she was 4th. So it's like really remarkable, really amazing individual performances, but just missing on the individual medal. It's tough.
That's correct. I think she pushed Lim Xion to, is it 6-4? I think
Yeah. 6-4 against Lim Chi-hyun, yeah.
So, which is a pretty remarkable result in itself. But it's so often the way. But she has taken, I suppose she has medaled twice, in this games in the last. But yes, you're right. It sort of seems like, I'm not going to say Alejandra under-delivered because she's a sort of perennial contender.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think it's possibly a harsh to say she underdelivered, but it's so there's so many little nearlies that could have happened, and yeah.
Hmm.
So India, I think, is a tough one because they came very, very close. Dheeraj was fantastic. I thought he showed.
Yeah, him being eliminated by Peters in the second round, that match was absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so Peters had that moment and happened. So yes, I do feel that India will eventually medal. He sort of sensed it sort of coming down the line.
Yeah, I feel it too.
Yeah. Who else underdelivered? Chinese Taipei again. Maybe Chinese Taipei aren't the force they were maybe sort of 4 years ago or something like that. Maybe in Tokyo, right. But nevertheless, they're always kind of dangerous, and it would not have been remotely surprising to see them take a medal somewhere. So.
Yeah.
China again didn't really deliver like some people expected. I know, I'm trying to pronounce her name right. Is Xiao Lei. She qualified third for the Chinese team.
Yeah,
she was. I think a lot of people expected her to do a bit more as well, and she didn't really sort of deliver quite as much as everyone was hoping. So they probably did not have a good games by their perspective, I think.
No, yeah, it was crazy because two of the Chinese girls, they were eliminated already in the early rounds. Not with amazing performances, It's not that they shot brilliantly, but they just ended up shooting against someone who turned out to be even better. For example, like Bomadevra and Peters, that one.
Yeah.
But it was just struggling all throughout. And to be honest, and to be fair, one of the guys, Wang Yan, he made it to the final 16, and then he shot really well, but Liu Sok shot amazing and then eliminated him. But then once again, as I said before about Li Jiaman, it just felt like she was trying too hard, and then she didn't, even though she shot a good match, you didn't feel like she was really convincing to advance to the quarterfinals and everything. So yeah, for China, even though they're back on the podium after missing out on 16 and 20, they really struggled after that team silver with the women's.
I think so. I mean, it was because they could have they could have won. They really could, if just a little bit. We say, Korea were feeling pressure. Now China might well have been feeling the pressure too. They also were under expectations, and there was a bit more. There was certainly a lot more expectations on them. But the silver was perhaps expected, and the goal was the target, I suspect.
Mm-hmm. And what about Mete? He was struggling the whole competition, taking so long, seeming to play with a buzzer almost, kind of like, let me see how close I can get to shooting next to the time running out. How did you see him?
I'm still not sure about that timing thing and the hanging on forever. If I understand it, it was for a reason. It was to cure something. What's it to do with? It was to do with sort of timing, or he was doing it for a reason. It wasn't like a target panic thing that he couldn't release. He was sort of deliberately doing it. Or obviously he's still in, our Lord Goktug, who manages all. He's sort of I presume it was under Goktug's understanding it, and there was a reason for it, so he did it for that reason. Nevertheless, it was strange and odd, and it happened of course they did get the medal in the team as well, but the mixed team was not exceptional, and the match in the last 8, while he pushed it closer as well, I never really felt that. I never quite felt that he was likely to push past.
I think he was losing 5-1 to Tomashiro, and then in the end he managed to get it all together. But then against Kim Woo-jin, he was struggling and didn't find that magic that he found before against Kim Woo-jin. And when he lost, you could see he was visibly really upset.
Yeah, he was devastated about that. I think whatever he built up in his mind that, I know he said he was going to try and win it for the first time. He wasn't going to try and defend the title. Nevertheless, you could definitely see it. It pulled something out of him, and he knew what it meant very much so. It was not just this happened here. There was a lot of expectations. There was probably a lot of pressure on him as well. He's become this huge star in Turkey, and in Korea, all the Olympic focus is on the archery team, and probably especially the women. An awful lot of the entire focus of the Turkish Olympic committee is now on Mete, being this big star. And however well you're handling that, that's always going to be That's always going to be a lot. But he did make the last 8, I suppose, which is not is at least an indicator that he is still shooting at a high level. If he'd been knocked out by someone terrible, that would be a different matter. Being knocked out by the eventual champion is obviously something else. So many good people got beaten by.
It's funny you talk about this because I guess we kind of got used to seeing the high-profile people. Someone gets eliminated early in this kind of spectacular fashion, But this time, I think only once this happened, and it was with Casey being eliminated in the second round. Yeah. So I feel like this time around these games, it was kinder on the big names of the field, right?
Yes, it was. Until that final day, yes, I believe you're right. I think it was only Casey who got beaten outside her seeding. I think pretty much everyone else went through. Maybe a couple of little smaller changes went through, but yeah, she was the biggest. She was definitely the highest seed that got eliminated. So.
And who eliminated Casey? I can't remember.
Let me try and remember. I can't quite remember actually. I'd have to look that one up. So
so many matches.
She did not. Again, she didn't look particularly comfortable on the stage. She looked kind of frustrated, and she had a lot of fear. She said afterwards, the nerves were there. She admitted it. She said, I was struggling with the nerves. So the brilliant thing for Casey was, of course, the mixed team finals where she took their bronze with Brady. Where Brady was just amazing. He was this rock, she could kind of rely on, and it clearly gave her that reduced the nerves enough that she could actually shoot as well as she can. It was kind of I thought that was a very beautiful moment. I really enjoyed that match, especially. I'm glad they got that. I'm glad they got that medal. It's a little bit of a redemption story. You have a disaster in the individual, and then you come back and take the medal as well in something else, which is amazing. So it was a nice bit of narrative as well, I suppose. It was a nice story too.
Yeah, absolutely. It must feel a lot of difference when you're there on your own and this atmosphere that you talked about, the stands and the crowd and everything. And then facing that on your own can really be daunting. But then going back in there, being with someone you've known for such a long time and someone you really trust, like Brady, I guess this really made a difference for her. And then she could perform better. And it was really beautiful to see as well. It was.
Yes.
And what about my teammate, Dalmeida?
What about Marcus?
Yeah.
I only spoke to Marcus very briefly. As I was doing, I asked him a few questions in English. I got him to reply in Portuguese and to get it translated. But he was very... by the time he got to me down the line of press, is the way it goes. There's a pecking order. You start with the broadcasting services, then you go to the people who have got rights holders, and then you eventually get to the kind of journalists at the end. By the time he got to me, he was clearly not in the mood to talk to anybody at all. He was and he was very, very short and sharp with me. I mean, I know him. I've spoken to him a few times, and so I know whatever that he didn't mean it. He's not being nasty or anything like that. It was just the way it goes. You can see people's frustration sometimes building up in this little process. So I didn't really see his match. I think that was one I had to run and get something else. So frustratingly, I didn't see his match. So perhaps you can tell me how he shot it.
Yeah, it started well, tying 29 against Kim Woo-jin with a 9 really close to the 10 ring. So that looked promising. But then in the second set, I'm pretty sure he dropped an 8 and Kim Woo-jin shot 30. And then from that moment on, of course, Kim Woo-jin shot amazing. And that really has to be made clear. But on the other hand, we didn't see the kind of performance that I believe and we believe that Marcus can produce. So
yes,
I'm really the kind of person that I believe that if you put anyone, not only the Koreans, but if you put pressure, even if you lose a set, but you lose it by just a little bit, just making them feel that they can't miss, because as soon as they drop a point, you're there to pick things up. So that didn't happen. I guess starting with his qualification round, it wasn't the best. I suppose the wind was really tough in the afternoon for the men's.
Yeah, it picked up a little.
Yeah, and then in the mixed team, also his performance wasn't the best. But anyway, in the first 2 rounds, he shot amazing, and he went through. Even though he had an early scare with the Ukrainian guy, that was fun to watch. But he shot amazing, and then definitely made us feel like he could totally come strong coming into the finals day. But I guess really what what was his undoing, unfortunately, was the qualification round that made him shoot up against Kim Woo-jin in the round of 16 rather than on the quarterfinals or semifinal or whatever.
Yeah, sure. That is really frustrating as well. And so I spoke to so many people who said kind of the same thing. Is that I just wish I'd qualified better, because I might have gone further. I might not have met this Korean in this round. So yeah, I'm sorry to see Marcus shoot, but from your description, it sounds good. We know he can produce these amazing arrows, but it's very, very difficult to do it on cue, especially if someone is putting up this incredible wall in front of you, of 29-30, and you've got to be absolutely there. So I hope he'll be back. I hope he'll be keeping going, coming around again. Perhaps you can tell me if he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe so. Actually, the first quote I heard from him, I don't know if I heard this internationally or whether I saw it really through the Brazilian media, but to me it sounded actually quite cheerful. He simply said, I was eliminated by Archery's Simone Biles. So it's kind of
that's a great quote.
Yeah, kind of just shrugging it off, kind of saying, well, I went up against this guy who is now we're saying he is likely the greatest of all time, and can't be too sad about that, right? The thing is, I also feel he might have felt a lot of pressure because in Brazil we are so passionate and so intense about sports and about the people who do well. And I guess the thing that a lot of people don't understand in Brazil, and maybe it's like this all over the world, but I'm just talking about my own reality. But people in Brazil, they don't understand that archery is they think, oh, he's the world rank number 1. It's been more than a year. He is the current World Cup final champion. He has won a couple of stages and he has won medals at the World Championship. So it is a given. For sure, this guy is going to win a medal at the Olympics. There's no way he's not going to win one. And we know that it doesn't work like this in archery. And so, yeah, maybe there was this pressure on him as well to deliver.
Of course, yeah. It's there's so much chat about world ranking, and as we both know, world ranking is a guide and it's a thing, but it's not necessarily a guide to form of who's going to win an Olympic medal because of all kinds of reasons as well. It's true. The expectations cranked up. I mean, the expectations on the French team, for example, were enormous. But luckily, certainly the men absolutely played right to it and were rewarded with an amazing medal. But Lisa Barbalan was really just suffering under this pressure. And she said so. She said she qualified very badly. And she went to see a sports psychologist in the Olympic Village who said many things, just to practice breathing, try and think about the Olympics outside, try and think about everything here. It is not all about a medal. I think she just got absolutely focused on it has to be a medal, it has to be a medal. And somehow she managed to pull it together. And with a little lucky break after the Indonesian archer, Quaranisa, just had a kind of slight meltdown at the end of her set, which was there for the taking. So she had a little lucky break, but after that happened, she seemed to reset very well and actually shot very, very well for her last 2 matches. So, and well-deserved that bronze. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But, wow, the French girls team match, that was hard to watch because really I
didn't actually watch that one. I think I missed that one. Was it bad? Was it really bad?
Well, they were really struggling, understandably, because, man, it's the first match of the French team, the expectation, and both French teams coming from winning the European title. If the three of them, they're shooting like we know they are medal contenders, but we know it's a totally different story to actually put it together there when it matters. And yeah, you could see that they felt the immense pressure they were under. But Lisa individually managed to turn that around. But that match against the Indonesia girl in the quarterfinal, that was absolutely crazy. Oh. Absolutely crazy. I think it was 8 to win. She needed an 8 to win.
Yeah, I think it was 8. Yeah, she only needed an 8. So just that was it. And she was a 5. Was it 5?
5. It was a 5. Yeah. Man.
She came off crying through the mix zone, through the press zone afterwards.
I can imagine.
I didn't try and talk to her. Perhaps I should have done, but she's obviously very, very nice. But she was, yeah, you saw it. She went off in tears. It was not so good. But there we are. These things happen. It's sort of, I was struck throughout the competition, particularly again the very last arrow of all with Brady and Woojin, with how archery pivots on like one arrow. Everything, it's like if this thing had happened here, that wouldn't have happened there. If this thing had happened here, and things change entire lives and entire careers, and the course of your entire life depends on this kind of random event. It's like this bit of luck, and it was absolutely illustrated by the very last two hours of the competition. But I used to think this very much of the last. They don't do it anymore, but the last qualification before the Olympics, which was that round of the World Championships where it's like the first team round, is it? And if you win that, then you qualify the team. They don't do it anymore. But I last saw that in Schittergenbosch in the Netherlands, which was the most bizarre and frightening experience I've ever had. I remember the skies were black, with this sort of rain and the fear on everyone's faces. You can almost smell it, this kind of terror that it would all build up to this moment, which could change your entire career, could change the course of archery in your country, And while the Olympics maybe isn't, that's almost more important, but these things hang on these tiny, tiny, tiny things, it's not. Gimujin also talked about being lucky. He said, I think I've been lucky. It's not like, I know it's not averaged over this thing. This is not luck. Nevertheless, it's this kind of. It is. There is some luck, and we don't really talk about the luck and the variance and these kind of very mild, tiny, 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 tiny things. The fragile gust of wind, but nevertheless, these things play out in this kind of drama we have, and whatever happens at the end sets the tone for everything else that follows. It's a little bit like human relationships as well. Like you might meet your girlfriend or your wife or your spouse or your partner. It's often through some tiny chance event. I went down here, I spoke to that person. It's like nothing. For no, almost no reason whatsoever. So, and I was reminded of that again at this competition. So much of it hung on these fragile little moments. So
This is
Chinese Taipei. Oh, sorry. In the women's match, if Chinese Taipei had put in, I think the last arrow she put in like a 5 or something like that, or 6. If they had done that and then got the next set, they would have been like 4-0 up. And like, what could have happened? Anything could have happened then. It's like suddenly the entire momentum would have changed. Again, that's just on that one arrow. So
absolutely the tiniest margins, they can put you off, and then that's it. You've got another 4 years to try again, and good luck until then.
Yes. It's when I was in Tokyo 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I spoke to Yasmin Anagöz of the Turkish team. She'd just been knocked out of the individual competition. I can't remember exactly which round it was in. I was in the mixed zone again, same place I was here in Paris, where all archers have to go. There's a rule they have to go through. So you have to go through this little ring of press. You don't actually have to say anything. You can literally walk through. And some people do. But she walked through, and I was just standing on the rail, and she sort of came up to me and sort of went, and she was almost in tears. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't even planning particularly to do an interview or quite, this is very bad. I'm so sorry, Yasmin. But I said, okay, talk to me. And she did. And it was, she's wonderful. She's a wonderful archer as well. I used to really enjoy watching her shoot. But I remember at the end, she just said, it's just not fair. It's not fair. And I think she might have said that 3 or 4 times. And it's true. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not fair at all. There's not justice for all that work you've put in, for how many years you've been standing there putting in arrows, and then just you have a bad end, or there's some wind, or or you're just not quite feeling it for like 5 minutes or 5 seconds. It's not fair. It's not fair at all.
No, if you think about the percentage of athletes of the 128 athletes that went to Paris and the percentage that walked away with a medal, it's a very small amount. And I'm sure that the amount of hard workers is much bigger than the amount of medalists, but there isn't enough place for everyone.
No, there's really is not. And there's no, we don't have anything like I've been watching some other sports since I got back, things like a repechage, you can go back, they put everyone in a separate pool, and then the winner of that gets another chance to go around again. Or we don't have anything like that. It's quite tough. Also, the other thing I've been reflecting since I've been watching some other sports is how short your Olympic life is. Most other things you might get 2 games or 3 games, or you might be in a pool system. You might get X and Y fights against someone else. You might all kinds of things, but you'll get like more than one. And archery, you might have you've got 6 minutes out there, and that's it, and you're going home. I don't know of any other Olympic sport that formats it and has people in such short bursts, that's all you get, So it's uniquely brutal in that too. You don't at least get to have a longer Olympic experience doing some other things too. So in competition. So
Yeah. I don't know if judo is a little bit like that it can be over in a minute or two, but I don't know. We're starting to get into the world of things we don't really know.
I think judo can go over in like 10 seconds if
it's even worse.
Just get tipped on your back. Yeah.
Okay, but now that we've been talking about all the upsets and the downsides and the sadness and everything, let's talk about the victories and the remarkable stuff. USA, they missed out on the podium in Tokyo, and now brilliantly with the mixed team and Brady winning the silver, that might as well have been a gold. But now the focus is entirely on USA because next Olympics, LA 28. And honestly, before the games and even in the preview, the Paris 2024 preview episode I did with Chris Wells, I talked about USA kind of being on a not so good position, like failed to qualify the men's teams and the men's team and all. But now after Paris, it's amazing what 2 weeks can do, right? Now they're looking great going into LA. But yeah, well, what's your take on Team USA now that they are going to be the focus for the next Olympics?
That's kind of interesting. I feel the teams that they sent the women's team, which was Catalina and Jennifer, they weren't extraordinary. They're very lovely people as well, but they were maybe not extraordinary, athletes in the pack. They shot very well. I think Catalina did. She got through at least a round and came close to a second,
and lost in a shootout, I believe, in the second round. She shot really well.
Yeah. So there was so she certainly had a good experience and put it out there as well. So I do feel the USA's strength in depth in recurve is maybe not. It's not what it could be, and it's not what other countries have as well, as other countries sort of prove they have some really good archers in reserve. So it needs to be the squad needs to be a bit deeper. You can't entirely rely on Brady, who I'm sure he said he's going to have another go around. I'm sure if he's still performing at the same level, he'll be there. But it's very, very. I know it's very, very difficult to be a recurve archer in the USA and be nationally ranked and compete in tournaments. It's a very, very expensive business. Of course, all being an Olympic sportsman is expensive, and you will need some kind of funding, whether that's family or some other way of doing it as an amateur. But I know from speaking to people involved in it and people who have tried to be nationally ranked in the US that it's a very, very expensive and difficult process to be in. And because there's no money in it as well, it's sort of people who are a great sportsman or might be involved in other things will go to other sports where, you can get sort of college scholarships and things like that. So people can be drawn away from it. And also it's just extra difficult. You have to be flying all around the country, and it's not easy being a USA recurve archer. If you're not, so obviously, Brady's earning a lot of money through other sources as well, so he's a slightly different prospect. But it's maintaining that kind of funding, and I don't know the situation with USA funding, but the strength and depth obviously needs to increase, and I'm sure they know that as well. But without some sort of financial investment in that, which it may be coming round, as often happens with the cycle, I don't see that changing, but we'll have to see. So it needs someone else to emerge that's not just Casey and Brady.
Yeah. Well, on the men's side, for sure, it's very exciting, for example, with Trenton Calls, who shot really well in the youth categories, and also Jackson Mirich. He's the current champion of the Pan American Games and shot the final of the Pan American Championships as well. So they've got some exciting names coming up, and on the women's side as well. But now it's going to be really, really intense for them the next 4 years to do even better in the home games. But also Germany, it's the third edition in a row that they win a medal. That's remarkable.
That's correct.
With Lisa 16 and the women's team in Tokyo 20, and now not only the mixed team with Michelle and Florian, but also Florian coming really close to winning an individual medal as well.
He did, yeah. It's I think it's definitely a good meet for Germany, and they do have some people. I don't know who I have coming through. I don't know who else is in the sort of in the pipeline as such, but I'm sure a result like that will be good for obviously funding and things like that as well. So I think they'll be challenging again next time as well. So it's clearly whatever their setup is working quite well.
Yeah. Now, the big question, the $1 million question. In LA
Oh,
28,
boy.
4 years down the line, can other countries snatch gold from Korea? Can someone challenge their supremacy in 4 years' time?
Well, I thought if Mexico, the Mexican women's team, had faced Korea, of course they didn't because they're in the wrong side of the bracket, or they got beaten by China. So China edged them out in that match. That was the one match they weren't so good. I do sort of wonder if Mexico would have taken it on. Actually, they sort of seemed so fired up. I was impressed by Mexico generally. I thought they were really, really good. The men's team didn't quite do anything as well, but then Matthias had a reasonably good run as well.
Yeah.
And he's still young,
But
I think there's definitely more to come from him.
But the Mexican women, let's say, I guess they are more solid in terms of results than the Mexican men. Like, especially because the Mexican men side, that it's been undergoing extreme renovation. Like, it's been 10 years since we've seen a very strong Mexican men's team, while the women, they have been renewing and kind of on a flatter run of performance, I'd say. So it doesn't come as a surprise. But I think Matias Grande for sure is so exciting going forward. He's been shooting super well, so young. And
yeah, it's I mean, you see these sort of things happening. Like, you see people sort of suddenly coming out of nowhere and shooting kind of incredible scores. I mean, in Great Britain, we've had, Penny Healy last year briefly became the women's number one. She won the European Games. She set a world record, I believe, on the 21 row record. She had an amazing kind of moment, but she really didn't perform here in Paris. I spoke to her as well. She's been having a few struggles. So there's a few things going on, but she sort of knew she wasn't really shooting where she could shoot as well. So again, it's going to take, there's always some interesting talent coming through as well. It's whether you can sort of sustain that and develop that and make sure that is something, meta kind of level that can like suddenly punch through and challenge. So the meta story is extraordinary as well. I mean, it's amazing. There's something I noticed as well. Obviously, there's this famous thing Mete promised. Mete made this promise and he put it on Twitter, said, "I'm going to win." At the end of Tokyo, I spoke to Göktürk and he told me the next thing is a men's team. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
right.
You're
So,
right.
yeah.
You're right.
He said, next thing is a men's team. I was like, at the point I was just like, okay, yeah, sure, fine. And it was true. And Göktürk produced a men's team and they got a medal. So I don't think the Turkish project is dead. I think I think anything could happen. And I know there's a lot of investment gone in there and some things could definitely happen in Turkey. So it's still changing. And there's people like inspired by Mete and stuff like that who are appearing out of nowhere and shooting really well, if I understand it correctly. So
yeah, we'll see. 4 years' time then for the rest of the world to try again winning Olympic gold in archery. But this time it was Korea dominating all throughout.
It was.
And just to... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, carry on. No, that's good.
I was going to the last question, so whatever you want to say before that, you can say it.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no problem. What's the last question?
Just wanted to hear from you, to ask for you to pick the 3 most memorable moments of Paris 2024 in archery.
The most memorable moments. Watching Lisa Barbalan, not so much getting the bronze medal, although that was a very beautiful, tearful moment. And I was just watching it on a monitor and welling up. She shot 2 matches as her elimination matches at the end of an evening in Paris, and all the crowd was behind her, and the noise was just unbelievable. It was this little moment of the crowd, everything behind her, and she was feeding off it. And it was a joy of archery as like spectacle, this kind of, this is what it can be, this kind of like someone going around running the 100 meters and then doing a lap of honor right round, like in the whole stadium. It felt like that. It had that kind of like rock star element. So that was a bit of joy because it's not something you usually see. I loved that moment. I loved the Mexican women. I thought they were fantastic. I really, really enjoyed their performance. After they won against Germany, you just saw Ana Vasquez just jumping up and down like absolute joy and excitement.
The funny thing about the Mexican women. Sorry, I just wanted to interrupt you on that because It's funny. I remember when Alejandra Valencia was the young rookie storming through the scene, and now she is the veteran. It's really nice to see this, 14 years after her debut, she is the veteran of the team and all. And Ana Vasquez, with the injury she had last year, making the team this year. Angela Rui is also a new, exciting talent. And the women's team's competition was on her birthday. So it's just amazing stories all throughout on the Mexican women.
Yeah. So, as you say, in like something like Mexico or Turkey or perhaps India again could finally surprise. We're going to have to see some kind of beautiful mercurial talent that is nurtured and comes out at just the right moment, with fully formed and able to take it to them. So, yeah. Other great moments. There was a few. I'm going to tell you something funny that happened, which no one saw, which was just me.
Okay, awesome.
In the
exclusive
in the mix
content.
zone. Exclusive content in the mix zone right at the end of the men's team. Brady came out. We had to talk to him. We got some quotes from him. Then Ujin and Rusiok came out together in a pair, both of their medals on, spoke to the press.
Men's individual, you mean?
In the men's individual
okay,
on the last day.
Yeah, because you said teams. So I was a little bit lost.
I beg your pardon. So both of them came out. They stood next to each other, and we start asking them questions. But all the questions are going to Ujin because it's because it's his big moment. And Rusiok is standing there with the medal around his neck, and then he starts doing something. After maybe the fourth question has gone to Ujin, he starts doing something very funny. He starts moving about an inch at a time, to the right, just out of the picture, and he does it very, very slowly, like this. Just moves across the zone, out of the picture. And he's looking at me while he did it, and I burst out laughing. And I said, "No, please come back. We're going to ask you some questions." And it was this little moment of incredible sense of humor, as just it's not me this time, so I'll just move out of the picture. Just very, very funny. Man.
The guy stole the show, right? And
so he was good. I enjoyed that. I got to see something else, which I think it's still on a video somewhere, of the press conference I saw all the press conferences afterwards. There's a press conference after each medal event, which is sometimes interesting and sometimes not. These ones were a little bit more interesting than the previous ones. And it was just Brady and Ujin sitting there, next to each other. They've got little placards saying gold medal, silver medal, and they're talking to each other. And I know Ujin speaks a little bit of English, not much, but a little bit. And they're clearly sharing jokes and being just buddies, And that was so, so sweet. So while I remember seeing Brady, and he's saying, "I don't mind, we shot like champions. That's the most important thing." Looking at his face and going "Are you really feeling that? Or are you feeling, feeling gut shot because it wasn't quite there?" And it's possibly both of these things could be true as well. He could be feeling upset and also feeling, no, I absolutely shot the best I could and this is amazing. Both these things can happen at the same time. But the fact that the two of them together were just being buddies, just on this, in that moment, they really, really, really had enjoyed that moment together. They genuinely did enjoy that moment on the stage. And that is the most important thing. That really is. That things like that will keep archery as a sport, in people's minds. That thing happened at the end. It wasn't just some Korean turned up and waltzed over everyone and then walked off and got the gold medal. No, there was a genuine great moment right at the end of it. So yes, that was my favorite moments.
Awesome. Just to pick up on that and really wrap it up now. I think that gold medal match, Brady versus Kim Woo-jin, is the biggest match we've ever in archery. Do you feel like that as well?
I do. I think so, because it had the most, anything like that has to have, resonance. It has to have, it's not just two people you've never heard of shot an amazing match of archery, which would be great, but it had that resonance because it had that weight, because it had all this history behind it. And then it came together and delivered as well. No one fell over, no one suddenly panicked and stuff like that. They both just came together and shot, as Brady said, they shot like champions. So yeah, I think I do agree. I've not seen anything better, and I've not seen anything more exciting. So yes, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I can't think of any other match as big as this one with as much importance and history, because it's the two biggest names of the past decade and a half. This is a title none of them had. And here they are fighting for it.
Yes.
Kind of the final showdown.
Absolutely. So that was, it was a privilege to be there and watch it. So, no, it's really, really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've come to the end of it. I really appreciate your time and willingness to discuss all of this. When it was over on Sunday, when everything was over, I was a little bit sad because it was like, we've had so much emotion and so much going on, and then all of a sudden this is over, and I just felt like, what is it going to be like my next days, my next hours without all of this going on? And talking to you now, recording this, I feel like I'm reliving all those moments again, and it feels amazing.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being there. I'm sorry I didn't get to watch. I only got like a tiny fraction of the watch along. So, but I hope you had a really good time doing it. And everyone, I know people who did it said they had a really good time joining in as well. So,
yeah, no, it was really cool. It was very fun. I think people who tuned in also enjoyed it. And yeah, it was very enjoyable. And I was really happy to be a part of it, even though remotely, but it was awesome. I was following everything for sure.
Excellent. Okay, good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bernardo. And yeah, I guess I'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. All the best. And now we start the countdown to LA 28. But this was about it for Paris. So Paris 2024 in the history books in terms of archery. Of course, still going on the games, but all things archery are pretty much done and dusted. And now we turn our focus to LA 28. But once again, thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
Are you two missing it all already? Like in some sort of Olympic hangover? What an amazing conversation with John, really. I was following all the competition, but from a distance. So to talk to someone who was actually there and saw the reactions and faces and expressions that weren't shown in the live stream makes it all feel more real, more human. That's what I value the most. The Olympics are the pinnacle of sport, the pinnacle of human ability and skill. But those athletes are not the gods that used to live on Mount Olympus. They're normal people. They have insecurities and they doubt themselves. What John said about Kim Woo-jin, the ultimate poker face, mentioning that these games were the most nerve-wracking for him. It's like, the guy is a former world record holder, 3-time world champion, God knows how long he led the world ranking, 2-time Olympic gold medalist before Paris. You could think that he's got nothing to prove to anyone. But there he is, in his own words, putting it as nerve-wracking. We saw tears of joy and tears of sadness, glory and defeat, resilience and heartbreak, and what I find the most brutal of all, the ones who did everything right, who gave it all, and still it wasn't enough. As Simon Fairweather, Sydney 2000 gold medalist, said himself, just luck alone won't make you Olympic champion, but to win the Olympics, you need luck as well. By the way, Simon is the guest I interviewed on episode 7 here in the Shoot Off Archery podcast. Make sure you check out that one. It's a great one. So that's it for today. And before I go, I just want to say that the podcast is taking a little break. First, I'm going on a short holiday trip to meet some friends in Spain. You know, sometime by the beach before summer is over. And right after that, I'm going to Paris because I'll be working at the Paralympics. I'm super excited about it all. I'll relax, meet friends, recharge the batteries before what will be very intense, but for sure exciting days following para archery on site. The podcast will be back at the end of September. Until then, you all have plenty of time to suggest who the next guest should be. And that leads me to say that, as always, feel free to reach out to me with suggestions, feedback, or questions you'd like to have answered here on the show, or just simply share cool stories. You can find the show's Instagram, YouTube, X, and email in the description. All the messages I get are really heartwarming. I really appreciate them all. If you like the show, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. So from me, it's bye for now. I'll talk to you again in about a month. And until then, keep on shooting strong. This is the Shoot Off Archery podcast. I'm Bernardo Oliveira. Thanks for listening.